Hello, and welcome to Archvelder's Hacks with Archvelder and his amazing hacks.
The past few years have seen unprecedented changes within the eternal land of Quel'Thalas. As one of the remaining Blood Elves, you must fight to protect Quel'Thalas and help redeem the soul of your ancient people.
The following video is a comprehensive leveling guide that is the fastest way to level to 110. It will reduce the time it takes to get to max level by between 50 to 100% versus more traditional methods. I would bookmark, favorite, or otherwise record the location of this video for fast and easy access, as you will need to refer to it repeatedly. While many of the techniques are very easy to apply, some are more complex and require repeated viewing. Some of the tricks I'm going to show you bend the rules. However, there is nothing in this video which is likely to get you banned, though some of these techniques may get fixed in upcoming patches. So if you plan to level any characters in the near future, I would do it sooner rather than later. Now, in this video I'm using basic looms and no enchants, and there's a reason for that, and that's to achieve a relative balance between players who are leveling up for the first time on a fresh account and players who have best in slot gear with full enchants and full looms. Between level 1 and level 10, the most valuable exploit you can use involves the item Fell Meteor and Goblin Glider, which I'm demonstrating here, which effectively allows the player to fly at high speed even before they can ride a standard mount. Fell Meteors can be farmed at max level on the Broken Shore, but I found it easier to buy them off the auction house. They cost around 100 gold a time, and the Goblin Gliders usually have negligible cost. If you are rolling a Worgen, you might know that you can use Meteor to very quickly escape from the starting area. Because this is a solo guide, and we're going to be travelling physically to the entrances of dungeons and instances, the reduction in travelling time offered by Fell Meteor and Goblin Glider is absolutely critical. Now, most races are just going to be questing up to level 10, and then they want to get as fast as possible to Orgrimmar or Stormwind. Exception, obviously, is for humans, and humans can avoid quests and go down to Crystal Lake in Elwyn Forest and farm Murlocs. There's a great video about that, which I'll be linking to below. The guy in the video says you can do it in 10 minutes. I found 15, probably 20 minutes more realistic, but it's still faster than questing. Now, obviously, if you're rolling a Pandaren or a Goblin, you'll have to complete the quests in their respective starting zones. There is no way to glitch out of those zones before you've completed the quests. For Blood Elves, as I'm showing here, you want to go behind the throne room in Silvermoon, port directly to Undercity, and there get the Zeppelin to Orgrimmar. If you're rolling an Undead or a Blood Elf, you may wish to leave your Hearthstone location in the Undercity area, because we're going to be returning here later, and that will save you some time. Once we get to our respective faction capital, we're going to be using exploits full on, and we're going to be deviating from the basic leveling strategy of Warcraft. I should just explain what that basic strategy is. And normally the fastest way to 110 without using any kind of exploit is to queue for looking for dungeon, and specific queue, do dungeons where you haven't yet done quests, and in the interim, while you're waiting, just do quests out in the world. The following technique I believe to be the fastest possible solo leveling approach. It is much faster than any basic leveling technique. It can be used with or without XP potions. I named it Method 0 since it is my default method for leveling. Now I'm going to show you exactly how to do this in game, and as you can see I've taken my Demon Hunter to the entrance to Ragefire Chasm. And my Demon Hunter has formed a group. My low-level Paladin has joined the group. My Demon Hunter has accepted her application. Paladin walks into Ragefire Chasm. This is important. The low-level character has to be in the instance to get any gains from running through that instance. Then the Demon Hunter logs in and enters the same instance, then runs through the dungeon. You can see the obvious advantage here. The Demon Hunter can clear the instance much faster than any low-level character can. In addition to being able to one-shot everything, they can move much faster. And the Demon Hunter is gathering up all the bosses. All the bosses in the instance will follow you throughout the instance once you've aggroed them, with the exception of the big worm guy. So what we're going to do is kite those 3 bosses to the big worm guy so we can kill them all at once. And as you can see here, we've drawn them all and the trash to that location. We're logging in on our Paladin. You don't log out on the Demon Hunter, you just log straight in on the secondary client to your Paladin, or your whatever your low level character is. And then you use the first client to log back in on your Demon Hunter and one-shot everything. And that will immediately gain your low level character an entire level's worth of XP. Now you're going to have to get your main back to the start of the instance. And you may have been wondering why my Demon Hunter is naked, and you probably suspected I was just doing it for the purposes of cynical clickbait, and you're completely right. But this does serve a useful function, because what you can do is use the help unstuck function, kill your character, and obviously if they're naked they won't take any damage to their gear. And that will put the Demon Hunter right back at the start of the instance. They can get out of the instance and then they can reset it and repeat the whole process. You can run Ragefire until you get to level 20. And remember, at level 15 you can do the quests. You're going to have to walk your low level character through the dungeon to complete those quests. But it's relatively easy to do so when pretty much everything is dead. When you hit level 20, you'll notice that the XP gains from running this instance using Method 0 begin to decline to the extent that looking for dungeon may be faster, especially as you can do dungeons where you haven't yet completed the quests. For Alliance, Ragefire Chasm is obviously not an option, so we run the Den Mines instead. Method 0 works slightly differently in this dungeon. The bosses are gated off from each other and can't be kited together as they can in Ragefire. So we simply run through the dungeon as quickly as humanly possible. Note that I'm using a monk here as I wanted to do all this leveling on one realm, and I already have a Horde Demon Hunter as you've seen. There's no particular reason to use a monk rather than a Demon Hunter for Den Mines. Sophisticated players may be able to make expert use of the monk's transference ability in dungeons where they have to double back on their route. Now you'll need to clear the mobs outside this teleporter on the Dead Mines ship itself for reasons which will shortly become apparent. Take your high level character up to Ripsnarl and aggro him, but don't kill him yet. Now we can't just log in on our low level character and expect to get XP gains. It doesn't work here. The characters are too far apart. So we're going to use the teleporter at the start of the dungeon to travel to the teleporter on the ship. And that's why we clear the mobs around that area. If you don't clear the mobs around that area, they'll kill your low level character.
Not find her until it is too late.
You can see if you look on the left there that my low level character is logged in and is not registered as disconnected as yet. And when I kill Captain Cookie, you see the low level character has gone up by more than a level in XP. To get our high level character back to the start of the dungeon, we again use Help Unstuck to kill the character and return them to the dungeon entrance. With the case of the low level character, just use the teleporter and walk them back. Now you can run Dead Mines until level 15, and you probably want to do the quests at 15, which should take you at least up to 16. And then you want to go back to Stormwind and run through the stockades, and the stockades is wonderful for Method 0. You can run through it so quickly, it's ridiculous. Most of the time using Method 0 when running this dungeon is actually spent logging in and logging out. Has the best possible combination of bosses which can all be kited. Quite a small area. And proximity between the entrance and the end point of the dungeon. It's just possible you might be able to run through this dungeon fast enough that your low level character never gets logged out, so you don't have to relog it on your secondary client. And if you can do that, that will cut down the time this dungeon takes even further. It's very quick as it is. You'll almost certainly hit instance lockout before the hour is up on just running this dungeon. You should easily be able to get into the low 20s running Method 0 through the stockades repeatedly before you get locked out of the instance. And then you want to head on to the Scarlet Monastery. Now that's in the north of the Eastern Kingdoms, and that's actually quite difficult for an Alliance player to get to. And the fastest method I've discovered involves flying to Ironforge, turning right at the entrance, and then using the Fell Meteor and Goblin Glider repeatedly to travel straight across to the ruins of Gilneas. Whole journey will still take about 15 minutes, but that's about 20 to 25 minutes faster than trying to do it on a ground mount. Really does take quite a long time doing it the conventional way. From the ruins of Gilneas, you'll proceed upwards past the Grainwain Wall, and then follow the road along past Forsaken Command to take you into Tirisfal Glades and then up to Scarlet Monastery on the top right hand side. For Horde, the process is much simpler and faster. You simply get on the Zeppelin from Ogramata Undercity and go up to the top right where Scarlet Monastery is awaiting you. Now you could run Scarlet Halls, which has a minimum entrance of level 21. I've never actually done Scarlet Halls using Method 0, mainly because I'd always kind of out-leveled it by the time I got up there, but it may or may not be viable. It's something you may want to experiment with. I always ran Scarlet Monastery itself, and it has the advantage of a boss that can be killed very quickly before your low-level character will be disconnected. Has the disadvantage that the secondary boss, Brother Call-Off, has to be killed before you can access the end bosses. That said, this is a great dungeon to run. The whole dungeon can be completed in under 2 minutes by a demon hunter. Now, just a word about the final interaction between High Inquisitor Whitemane and Mograine. The battle is rather complicated by a resurrection that's performed halfway through. Now, you'll want to use the Method 0 character switch at the moment where High Inquisitor Whitemane first appears and stuns you.
I need to get closer.
For those players who want to level up exclusively in-world, or are perhaps just taking a break between dungeons, there is a significant exploit in Hillsbrad Foothills for Horde, which will enable the player to level up speedily from 19 until they hit level 60 and leave the Eastern Kingdoms permanently. Get the quest Protocol, which is some way up the Hillsbrad Foothills quest chain. I'll give a link below to a video which will explain how to get to the point where you receive the quest. This quest gives you 2 NPCs who are quite strong and will fight for you using a range of interesting abilities, and they are Johnny Awesome and Apothecary Leiden. Now, normally these 2 NPCs will despawn upon leaving the immediate area of the quest, as I demonstrate here. However, if we move in and then straight back out of the quest zone area, the NPCs spawn outside the intended zone and will now follow us anywhere in the Eastern Kingdoms. Collectively, they are quite strong and will kill more or less anything you aggro, making leveling much faster and easier. There's a similar quest chain for Alliance at level 34 in Pandaria in the Western Plaguelands, called Combat Training. It is only a few quests in from the start of the Western Plaguelands quest chain, which begins at Chillwind Camp with the quest Uther's Blessing.
See you later.
This gives you 4 farmers who will fight for you. They are not especially strong individually, but collectively will kill anything in the Western or Eastern Plaguelands. Here again, the farmers can be glitched out of the intended quest area by moving in and out of the relevant zone once the quest is triggered. Stratholm offers a reasonably good opportunity to use Method Zero, as all of the bosses can be kited to some extent. On some of these runs I filmed for this video, I had some difficulty getting XP gains credited on my low level character, and what seemed to solve this was logging on to the secondary character, the secondary low level character, when I reached Timmy the Ghoul, and then one-shotting Timmy and the Forsaken before proceeding onward towards the end of the dungeon, and this seemed to solve the problem. Note that the trash following you will use knockback, which can slow you down, but on repeated runs you'll find that you can kind of surf it and actually use it to increase your speed. The help unstuck method you use to get to the start of the instance works slightly differently here. Stratholm is a very old instance, and it uses the vanilla method of dumping dead players at the nearest graveyard to the dungeon in spirit form. However, it only takes seconds to get back into the instance and reset it. From 47 to 58, we'll be using an old, very well known method that is generally considered to be an exploit. I'm not going to spend any time on this because you'll quite likely encounter a group doing this in LFD just by queuing. Essentially, you enter Blackrock Depths detention block, click on the mole machine at the entrance, and choose the option just past the Grim Guzzler. You should now be standing above Lord Incendius, jump down with your group and kill him, then go up the path directly in front of him, kill the trash, and then kill the boss Phineas Darkfire, which completes the dungeon. And just keep requeuing until you hit 58, or you hit instance lock. At 58, you can finally enter Outland and leave Azeroth behind you, so pat yourself on the back and give yourself a cookie. Now we are going to run Hellfire Ramparts using Method Zero, and the XP we get is really good here, at least to start with. Hellfire Ramparts is almost perfect for Method Zero, being a very small instance that's very efficient to run. The one problem is that while Watchkeeper Garglemar can be kited, Omar the Unscarred cannot, so we're going to have to log in on our low level character twice to get the full XP gain from dungeon completion. Remember to do the quests here. You can keep running Hellfire Ramparts up to 65, and you may wish to do the other wings of Hellfire Citadel at least one, mainly because they are all grouped so closely together. From 65 onwards, I generally use LFD again, mainly for convenience and also because I hate flying long distances through Outland. But it might well be worthwhile for some of the BC dungeons like Sethic Halls using Method 0, as they are virtually designed for efficiency of completion. At 68 we can head to Northrend and Icecrown Citadel, and remember to get cold weather flying from the trainer in Orgrimmar before you go. Now I've tried Ugarb Keep, which can be entered at 67 using Method 0, and it works fine, but I just did not want to run it again for this video because I've run it far too many times in the past. So I followed up the suggestion of a guy called Joshua Rodriguez in the comment section of a leveling video by another YouTuber, and he recommended farming these converted heroes here in ICC. That's just in front of ICC. Joshua claims to have gone up a level every 15 minutes or so between 70 to 80. Now I've tested this and it's clear to me that unless you have best in slot gear, farming these mobs at that pace is impossible. However, for players with less impressive gear, or possibly of a different class, there's a trick you can use to bump up your eye level. If you go to a class trainer, and the nearest one is in Northrend Dalaran, to the location we want to farm, enter the Proving Grounds, then click on Teleport Out of Dungeon, and the instance is preserved. The Proving Ground scenario is preserved, and we can return to it at any time. If we then go back to the front of ICC and begin farming mobs, then we can return to the Proving Grounds whenever we want. And by starting the Proving Grounds cooldown, our health is restored to maximum, and crucially all of our cooldowns are reset to 0. This has an amazing impact on your ability to farm mobs, as you can see. If you don't want to grind mobs for whatever reason, I would use Method 0 to run through Utgard Keep from 67 and then Asjol Nirup, and that should take you up to level 75. At level 75 you'll want to head into the Icecrown Citadel itself and the dungeon Forge of Soul. Be aware that using Method 0 your low level character will not get experience for running Forge of Souls, but we have to run through it in order to gain access to the Pit of Saren next door to it in the Frozen Halls. There seems to be some sort of weird anomaly with Forge of Souls, whereby the low-level character does not receive experience. It may be to do with the relative proximity of the characters, or it may just be completely random. There's also an issue with your low-level character getting attacked by some of the trash mobs in the instance. It's a good idea to clear all the trash on the way through the instance with your high-level character. Having run through Forge of Souls and gained access to the Pit of Saren, we can then use an interesting variant on Method 0. In Pit of Saren the boss is Leash, and we're going to be killing all the trash instead. Essentially what you do is run around the perimeter of the quarry, pulling as many mobs as possible, and then once you've gathered enough you log in on your low level character, then back in on your high level character and one shot all the mobs. Gold farmers will know this strategy is essentially the same thing as the battered hilt farming technique. You can pick up a windfall of gold while grinding here. You'll be getting around 100k experience per run doing this instance. You're probably going to hit instance lockout, so if you don't want to wait for instance lockout and do something in the interim, then just run LFD a few times and that should get you up to 80. Now from 80 to 81, unless you have best in slot gear, then you probably want to run a Cataclysm dungeon through LFD until you get to at least 81. From 81 and especially 82, you can forget about Cataclysm altogether. You'll want to keep your character parked in Icecrown Citadel. And there's a weird anomaly with the legacy buff in the Frozen Halls. You can now solo run the Forge of Souls on your low level character. There's no interaction with other characters required. You don't need to use Method Zero. You're just soloing Forge of Souls straight up. And you'll find the XP gain from that is faster than anything. Especially when you take into consideration that the Cataclysm dungeons you get at that level, while they're relatively efficient in terms of XP, the mechanics in those dungeons were originally meant to be quite difficult. Now, they were heavily nerfed, but some of the instant death mechanics are still in place. So you'll often find LFD groups trying to rush through that content and wiping continuously. Exploiting the legacy buff through Forge of Souls, you will get to 84 very quickly. It remains efficient from 84 to 85, and even without the practical considerations I just mentioned, even if you get a really good series of groups when running Cataclysm content, then exploiting the legacy buff from 82 to 85 is generally going to be faster. When exiting Forge of Souls, I use the portal to Pit of Sauron, which itself has a portal which can put you back into the Frozen Halls, outside all of the instances. And this is quite an efficient way to getting back to the start of the dungeon. What I didn't realise is that entering the Pit of Sauron adds to your instance lockout count, so you may wish to use the strip your character naked help unstuck method I've illustrated earlier in the video instead. Now it's time to head to Pandaria, and you can head to Pandaria by doing the opening introductory quest with a cinematic, and then the portal to Pandaria opens up at your respective faction capital. You don't need to go through the introductory quests. It's a much faster way of getting there. I'd come straight here to Pangstead in the Valley of the Four Winds, unless you have really fantastic gear already, because there's a vendor that will sell MOP appropriate level gear to you. Now you can get through the whole of the Mists of Pandaria expansion from 85 to 90 just running dungeons. The process is so instantaneous there aren't really any exploits that help that much. The one thing I tend to do, this isn't really an exploit which helps a bit, is Temple of the Jade Serpent. You don't need all 5 players trying to kill Wise Mary. One or more players can go down the other wing to complete the dungeon much faster. Now you will need something to do in between dungeons whilst in Pandaria. I noticed the queue times seem to be unusually long, well over 10 minutes. So what I do is go down here to the Imperial Granary, again in the Four Winds, and there's lots of mobs called Mazy Tricksters. Now these tricksters give you a speed and haste buff, which makes farming them quite efficient. And this is pretty good for filling in the gaps between enemies. It's also a lot of fun. Overall, it should only take a few hours to get from 85 to 90. It's almost as if Blizzard were slightly embarrassed about an expansion composed mainly of beer-swilling anthropomorphic pandas set against a horrendously mismatched plot concerning the nature of the darkness of our own souls. Now, the second you hit 90, you'll want to head on to Draenor. But we're going to get there in a way that's probably different from the one you think. The second you hit 90 in Pandaria, the flight path to the Timeless Isle will open up. So get to the Timeless Isle, and then go to this location in the southeast of the island. And we're going to swim down into this underwater cave here. I'm just going to show you exactly how to do that because it's quite easy to miss. Watch out for the frogs when you're going down here, by the way. Now, when you get to the cave, sit on the chairs and click on the fire. And you will be magically teleported to Gorgrond in Draenor. Interestingly, this doesn't seem to be an actual exploit. This seems to be an Easter egg deliberately put into the game. For what reason, I'm not entirely sure. And from this location, you can fly down to your garrison. And the introductory quests to get to your garrison will be available. Now, the point of doing all this is to avoid the Tanaan jungle introductory quests, which are rather slow, and most of us have been through far too many times to ever want to do it again. However, it's worth mentioning there is an interesting opportunity in instance Tanaan jungle itself, which I'll demonstrate for you now. If you complete the first few quests in the Tanaan jungle instance zone, you'll be sent on a mission with this orc, Ariok, and he acts as a bodyguard with you. And you want to take him not to the actual quest area you're supposed to go, but back to this location where you get a high density of orcs, and they respawn instantly. And you can just farm this area continuously. The combination of instant respawn, the support of Ariok, and the fact you can't actually die due to the protection Khadgar offers you in this instance makes this quite an attractive option for grinding XP. For the Alliance, however, there's an even better option, which is to complete the Shadow Moon Valley quest line up to the point where you get the quest The Fate of Karabor. And that sends you into an instance version of the Temple of Karabor. There's a lot of mobs in that temple. You can grind these mobs up to 100 in theory. This exploit was first discovered by some guy on Ogre, and to tell the truth, the XP it brings just grinding mobs is reasonable, but it's not particularly spectacular. However, there is an amazing glitch which is rather tricky to pull it off, but if you can pull it off, it makes this really rock. Now you can see when I'm standing in this circle of light here that Yrel casts when fighting Krull, that I get a buff called Radiant Light, and that heals you incredibly fast, making it very easy to farm this instance. Now, it's a somewhat temporary buff normally, but what you can do is pull Krull and Yrel over to the left stairway, and then there are mobs there that will periodically knock you back. And it's quite difficult to trigger this, but sometimes randomly you get knocked out of the circle, but the Radiant Light buff persists, and that makes you more or less immortal, and you can farm all the mobs in the instance pretty much as fast as you like. And here's what it looks like when you get the Radiant debuff glitched onto your character permanently, and you can really pull as many mobs onto you as you want. You're de facto invincible. It also increases your damage significantly. Before you start farming, it's a good idea to come here just to the south of your garrison and get one of the buffs from this weird statue thing. That will substantially increase the rate at which you can farm. Also remember that you have your Call to Arms ability in Draenor. Also remember to get the 20% XP potion from your Garrison Quartermaster. For Horde, the best way to level up through Draenor is just do the bonus objectives. If you've got some kind of XP potion, there's a very well-known strategy where you complete all but one of the bonus objectives, and then take your potion and fly around and complete all of them, which I won't be showing because it's been done to death in other videos. Now, at 98, we're going to head out to the Broken Isles, and the first thing we're going to do is pick up a very powerful secret debuff, which helps enormously with leveling and few know about. This buff is from the quests leading to the Legion introductory scenario, where Varian snuffs it, And you want to get the quest to be prepared and receive the polished armor debuff, which lasts 1 hour, persists through death, and increases your armor by 30%. That's a significant damage reduction which you can use for leveling in the Broken Isles. Once you've got the quest, you don't need to complete it. Just skip straight to Dalaran, and you can come back and refresh it anytime you're in Stormwind or Orgrimmar. Now, by far the fastest way to travel through Legion content is to just do demon invasions. The problem with these is that they are widely spaced out and are often at inconvenient times of the day. One way to extend the leveling value of these invasions is to use the special abilities which you are given in some of the invasion quests. For example, take this quest, Battle of the Ruins, in the Ruined Sanctum in Azuna. You are given an arcane bomb ability which will two-shot most of the demons in the area. Sometimes, as in this particular quest, when the bar fills up, you no longer have access to the special ability, but I find a hack to work around that. Just join a raid group using Group Finder, and whilst in that group you will not progress in any quest you're currently on, allowing you to keep the arcane bomb or other special ability until all the demon invasions expire altogether. Obviously, with such an overpowered ability, you can grind XP unusually fast. You can use the Proving Grounds to reset your cooldowns whilst questing and leveling up in the Broken Isles, and this has the effect of dramatically increasing your DPS and leveling speed by effectively giving you a much higher eye level and an instant heal, as I'm demonstrating here with my Hunter to use back-to-back Ancient Hysteria and Stampede. This method can easily knock 20 to 30% off your overall leveling speed whilst in the Broken Isles. It can be used at earlier levels, but it really comes into its own when you get to Legion content because of the relative lack of importance of dungeons. I can't emphasize just how powerful this particular technique is. It is easily the most useful technique I've ever developed, and the one I use most frequently in the actual game. Additionally, it isn't visible to other players and can't be detected automatically, so you can use it as much as you like. I'm just going to quickly cover two subjects which very rarely get mentioned in the context of leveling, and the first one is player versus player combat. Now, this is significantly more attractive than in previous expansions for people trying to level up. If you PvP while leveling, I would take a look at my WoW player versus player combat guides, as they will enable you to win at a significantly faster rate and obviously level up faster. Finally, just a word about pet battles. Pet battles are a kind of world unto themselves, and I'd urge anyone interested in the subject to check out Zufu's battle guides. It is too specialist a subject to go into in any detail here, but there's one trick you can use which doesn't require much specialist knowledge.
You wouldn't want to see me.
If you upgrade your menagerie in the Draenor garrison, you'll get a series of quests, one of which involves killing 3 garden pests. These garden pests are very easy to kill without any specialist knowledge of pet battles and yield a decent amount of XP. You can abandon and restart the quests, gaining XP each time, and unlike most forms of XP grinding, it doesn't slow down when you level past Draenor. Also, in addition to the XP, you can grind up pets whilst you're doing it, and those pets can be sold on the auction house for quite a bit of gold. They take a while to sell, but when they do, they can sell for a lot. You can complete the battle much faster with the Imperial Constructs from the Mage Tower. That's the Imperial Constructs from the Mage Tower, and a teleport ability such as Transference or Demonic Circle to get you back to the quest giver speedily. So there's the video. If you found it useful, why not subscribe? And if you really loved it, then consider joining the exciting community of people we have supporting this channel over on my Patreon. There's a link below. Patrons receive all of these exploits the second I find out about them, which is often months before they appear on YouTube. Thank you for watching. This has been Archvelder. What the bloody hell? Do you ever get the feeling that Blizzard's trolling you?